So question 7 is similar to question 6. So let's see what we can do with this one. So for the credit card account, assume the 1 month billing cycle. So notice how our billing cycle starts on the 13th, so it has to end on February 13th. So we have that 1 month going on. So we have to count the number of days that are there to start with. So I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to count those days out. And I would encourage you to do the same thing. So as we were mentioning, so we go from January 13th to January 16th becomes one little cycle. And then the 17th to the 22nd would be our next cycle. And then the 23rd to the 26th becomes our next cycle. And then the 27th through the 3rd becomes our next cycle. And then 7th through the 13th becomes our next cycle. So we determined that the number of days is going to be 4, 6, 4, 8, 3, and 7. Notice that the 27th through the 3rd, we had 5 days from 27 through 31 and 3 days from 1st to 2nd. So remember, to determine the number of days, we just subtract the end date and the start date and add 1. And that gives us our days, and the total days is 32. So our next step is now to determine the ending balance. So I'm going to pause the video for a second and I'm going to determine the ending balance. So as we follow this through, we pick up on that our balance starts out as 438.16. But then on the 16th, we have some returns. So returns means we're adding money to our account. So starting on the 17th through the 22nd, my balance has changed. So we would actually add the 102.57. I'm sorry, returns makes my balance go down because it's like money back to me. So returns reduces my credit card debt. So now I'm actually down to 335.59 because returns makes my credit card bill go down. So then we move along and we start buying again. So on the 22nd, we buy again. So on the 23rd, my balance has changed. So 335.59, we add the 160.1646, and we end up with this 347.05. So they added to our bill. And then it stays that way until the 26th. So on the 27th, our bill changes again because we bought bus tickets. So that adds to our bill. We're now up to 416.59. But also on February 3rd, we make a payment. So that means our credit card bill goes down. So starting on the 4th, the 416.59 gets dropped down by $125. So now we're at 291.59. But then on February 6th, we buy some stuff again. So starting on the 7th, our bill changes again. So 291.59 plus then the 53.21 gives us this $344.80. So that bit becomes our ending balance all the way up to February 13th. So now we can find our average daily balance. So I'll pause the video for a second and we'll get that going. So to determine the average daily balance, we have to have the sum of the daily balances divided by the number of days in the cycle. So remember that to determine the sum of the daily balances, you have 4 days at $438.16. So you have to multiply those together. Then you got to add to that the 6 times the 335.59. So I'm going to just start firing that into my calculator. So we have this 4 days at 438.16. And then we're going to add to that 6 days. The balance is going to be the 335.59. And then we're going to add to that 4 days at 347.05. 05. Then we add to that 8 days at 416.59. Then we have 3 days. Oops, got to hit a plus sign there. So it's tricky. Get this stuff in right. So 3 days at 291.59. And then add 7 more days at the 344.80. So let's get that answer. And then we're going to divide it across 32 days. And that gives me my average daily balance. So on average, I'll have $367.98. So my average daily balance is actually $367.98. So there's part A, the average daily balance. Now, part B says determine the monthly finance charge. So remember, to determine the monthly finance charge, we got to multiply the monthly rate times our average daily balance. So our monthly finance charge is going to be our average daily balance, which is this 367.98 rounded to two decimal places. But we got to multiply that by our interest rate, which was 1.6% again. So we get to use that 0.016 again. So if I multiply then this 367.98, my daily balance by the finance charge of 1.6% per month, so 0.016, that tells me what my finance charge is over that period of time. So $5.89. $5.89 because that third decimal place is a 7, which means that it's got turned into a 9. So now I can actually determine my end balance. My end balance is going to actually be including the finance charge now. So up here we were at, it looked like $344.80 was my ending balance. So $344.80 was where I was ending at. But now I got to add a finance charge of $5.89 to that. So if we clear this off here and go 344.80 and add to that the 589, that'll give me my new balance for my new cycle. So starting my new cycle, I'm going to be starting out at $350.69. So the end balance becomes my new balance for my new billing cycle. So hopefully you find that helpful. Those were tough.